warm welcome, good morning, and respected Honorable Vice Chancellor Leshram Singh Sarji from University of Bodoland, Assam, Mr. Anuj Reddy, Head Commercial Excellence from Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, my colleagues and dear students, welcome to 3rd International Healthcare Management Conference. As one famous author, Mr. Yuval Noah Harari, has said that human beings are not very significant species in this planet compared to others, but we control and rule the planet because we can work together as a collective and collaborate to achieve goals and what we believe in. This conference is also possible today thanks to a lot of collaboration and cooperation. We have our external collaborators from Harris Sexteria Institute of Public Health, today represented by Dr. Namita Putambika. We have our own Somaya Hospital and Research Center. Internally, we had collaboration from Department of Business Analytics, Data Science, and Department of Economics to do or facilitate a pre-conference workshop for us. As all things are moving forward and progressing in the pandemic, we thought we will look at what kind of healthcare strategies, policies are required for better care delivery and well-being. I wish all of us, all the delegate students, to have a wonderful day of learning and interaction today. Before we go forward, I request Dr. Prema to come and just show a token of our appreciation for our Vice Chancellor, Sir Leshram Singh. I request Dr. Chandan Sanghi to please come forward to facilitate our guest, Mr. Anuj. Thank you, and over to our anchors now.
I am profusely elated to take an opportunity to introduce our guest of honor, Professor Leshram Singh Ji, Vice Chancellor, Bodoland University, Assam. Professor Leshram Singh Ji graduated from Guwahati University with distinction and is also a gold medalist in MSc Statistics from Aligarh Muslim University and gold medalist in CPS from the International Institute for Population Sciences. He has also served as a member of many committees such as Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Niti Aayog, Government of India, and academic bodies of many institutions. He has authored a number of research papers in Scopus, PubMed, and Thomson Reuters. He is currently working as the Vice Chancellor at Bodoland University in Assam. May I invite the guest of honor to come forward and speak a few words.
Very good morning to keynote speaker Sri Anuj Reddy from Dr. Reddy's Lab. Pawan, the convener of the Third International Health Ramchandra and my student, Dr. Basarani Mara, Basarani, all the dear students. Today I thought of sharing two tales which represent the two faces of the same coin, namely the demographic and epidemiological transitions, which has a lot of implications on the health of the individual, on the health system of the government, the public, and also the health management. And for this, I will share a short presentation. The title of my talk is Teaching Demographic and Epidemiological Transitions. What causes population aging? It is the decline in the mortality rate, and improvement in the life expectancy of the population, and the main cause of population aging.
Also adjust the speaker also. The mic is adjusted, sir. That mic. Just एक मिनट रुको इधर.
Now, this is the population pyramid of India. The bottom grade 1 and 2, they are the population of children. Middle 3, they are the middle age population, and top are the elderly population, that is the 65 years and above. Anyway, the acronym is not working, but let us proceed. What happened is that so now the debate in the TV and the newspaper is that India's population has overtaken the Chinese population. We have crossed 141 million, marginally overpopulated than the Chinese population. So now in the TV, the discussion is going on what are the implications of this population change for both the countries. For China, the margin of the working age population, which we normally refer to as the demographic dividend, that base has gone up. And whereas for India, still we are in the period of the demographic dividend, so we are still having a favorable working age populations, which will lead to enhancement in the economy of the country. But what is the important is so this graph, what I am showing here is the blue one is the per capita level income, and the purple one is the per capita consumption. The consumptions from the investment of the public sectors for health, education, infrastructure, defense, and other investment. And it also includes the household consumptions for food, education, healthcare, durables, housing, etc. And what we see is that the children, they are consuming more than what they earn. And similarly, in the post-retirement period, the elderly populations, they are also consuming more than their income. So there is a deficit, economic deficit, that is referred to as the life cycle deficit. Now, this deficit has to be supported by the public sector and also by the household sector. In the household sector, there is the intra-household transfer and the inter-household transfer. Intra within the household, inter from other households. And then public also get benefit through the various programs of the government, like earmark program for healthcare, earmark program for the social security, like that. Now, using this per capita level income and per capita consumption, if one is interested to identify the demographic dividend, what we have been hearing is the demographic dividend. We have not been able to know how to quantify it. But once you know the per capita consumption and the per capita level income, by weighting the population with this per capita consumption and the per capita level income, we can calculate what is known as the economic support ratio. This is the economic support ratio, and this will enable us to quantify the first demographic dividend. There are two kinds of demographic dividend. One is the first demographic dividend, that is resulting from the increase in the working age population. But this is not automatic. There are preconditions. The precondition is that we have to have employable working force, and we should have a enhancement in the productivity of our workforce, and this is the preconditions. And if we take the weighted populations by the per capita income to the weighted population per capita consumptions, we get economic support ratio. And the second demographic dividend is coming because in the days to come, the couple would have fewer and fewer children, and they will not rely on their children for their survival in the post-retirement period. For that, they will start investing, they will start saving. So the household saving rate will increase. That is called as a second demographic dividend. Now, we plot the economic support ratio over a period of time, then you get a accelerating figure of the economic support ratio during the period 1975 to 2045. That is the phase of the first demographic dividend. And by that time, our working age population will decline, and the first demographic dividend will disappear. And the second demographic dividend then will start from 2045, where the household saving rate will increase. Now it is presently around 30% of the total saving is the household saving rate. That will now increase. So the rate of growth of the first demographic dividend and second demographic dividend shown here by the dotted green one and the dotted red one. What we see is that the dotted green one it becomes negative after 2045 because by the time the working age population disappears or reduces, and it will come to the stage of Japan and Korea and other aged populations. But the dotted red line, which is the rate of growth of the first demographic dividend, and the second rate, they will always remain positive. And the combination of the two, that is represented by the blue line, you see that it is positive till 2045, then become negative because of the negative decline in the first demographic dividend. So, if someone wants to quantify it, you can quantify it in terms of income per equivalent consumer. And during the 75 to 2045, the income per equivalent consumer increase or enhances by 60%, and the contribution from the first demographic dividend is 42%. But if you look at longer period, where the working age population increase to decline, then the contribution from the second demographic dividend will outnumber the contribution from the first demographic dividend. Now, we have seen the life cycle deficit encountered by the young and elderly populations. Now, it is the responsibility of the state and the household to support them. And the working age population, they are the sandwich generations. So they have to support their children and also they have to support their parents and also support themselves. So now, if you subtract these things, the income from the consumption, the children they are having the high positive deficit, and also the elderly they are having the high positive deficit, and they are being supported by the prime working age group who are having the surplus income over their consumption, and the government play intermediary role to mediate the intergeneration public transport system by taxing people and then reallocating to the earmark programs. So if you look at the private transfer, who contributes and who benefits? The inflows are the beneficiaries and outflows are the contributors. So whatever the extent of the monetary support within the household, maximum benefit goes to the children under 19 years and who are the main contributors. The main contributors are the prime working age group in the 30 to 49. And if you look at the way in which the life cycle deficit in the entire life cycle of the individual is financed, there are four sources. It is private asset-based reallocation, it is selling the asset, liquidating the saving, those are the private asset-based reallocation. Similarly, the public sector also do the same based kind of thing, and the private transfers within the household, the public transfer to the programs. And what we see is that the children they rely mostly on the private transfer support within the household, and the elderly they rely mostly on the private asset-based reallocation, that is disposing assets, liquidating savings. Now, post 2005 and particularly post 2014, there has been a lot of public initiatives introduced by the government, including RSPY and then strengthening Manrega and all the other informal sectors workers. And then what are the implications of that one? And it would have implications on the life cycle earning and the life cycle consumption. But it has been not able to bring a lot of contributions in as far as the earning is concerned, but it has also not been able to give the contribution in the enhancing the consumption. Probably the period that I am studying is shorter period than 7-year period. And when the data are available, we will be able to assess for a longer period. I am skipping this one. So along with the demographic transition, there is also the epidemiological transitions. This is the disease burden for the year 96. now what you see is that the blue one, the share of the infectious and parasitic diseases is huge, and whereas the share for the diseases of the circulatory system, diseases of the respiratory system, their share is less. But over a period of time, what you will see is that the share of the infectious and parasitic diseases in the disease burden declines, whereas the disease burden due to the non-communicable diseases have increased. But what is the implications of this one? People hardly look into the survivors and descendants comparisons. People normally look only at the out-of-pocket health expenditures. If one look at the disease pattern and out-of-pocket health expenditures and compare it for the survivors and also those who died during the course of the treatment, then one will see that the out-of-pocket health care expenditures of the people who died in the course of the treatment is around 3 times more than that of the patients who survives during the course. And what you see here is that I am just giving a comparison of the disease burden of the descendants and the survivors for the both age groups under 15 years, and 52 to 59, and 60 plus years. And what you see is that the shares of the disease burden due to the non-communicable diseases are much more higher in the case of the descendants across age groups than as compared to that of the survivors. So now, if you look at the out-of-pocket healthcare expenditures of the descendants and survivors by broad age groups, and the descendants for the patients who died during the course of the treatment is much more higher than that of the patients who survived after treatment, and it also increases with advancing ages. And this is mean out-of-pocket health expenditures. I'm not making out the figures, but this is the pattern. It means we worry about the totality of the mean out-of-pocket health expenditure. If we already segregate it between the survivors and the descendants, the burden on the household where the individual died due to the treatment is much more. And the causes of death by international classifications of the disease also changing over a period of time. And what you see is that the red one is for the year 2004, 5, and whereas the purple one is for the recent year 2017 and 18. What you see is that the causes of death due to the infectious and parasitic diseases, they have declined, whereas the diseases related to the mental health, respiratory diseases, they are increasing over a period of time, and this is a cause of concern for all of us. So that's all about my presentation. What I am trying to say is that along with the demographic dividend, there is also an increase on the out-of-pocket healthcare expenditures, and here lies the role of all the healthcare management, including the public and the private sector players, and to reduce the out-of-pocket healthcare expenditures of for the treatment of the various kind of diseases and illnesses. If there are any questions, please to respond.
Thank you for your excellent address to our conference, sir. So, as you mentioned very rightly that you have identified the gap, that in what direction demographic picture is changing and what should be the state policy and the action of the private sector. So, in this regard, what kind of qualities do you think that healthcare managers should imbibe for the future career options?
The career options for the healthcare healthcare managers is quite open, and I believe that all of them have come from various backgrounds, and depending on their background, say now there is a concern on the rate in which the mental health issues are increasing, not just among the elderly, but also among the students and also the school-going kids. Here, the role of the counselors, those who come from the psychology, social work backgrounds, they can play a big role. And those who are coming from the quantitative backgrounds, because data is boring for many of us, but data is the only one which can give us a directive where we are reading, where we should give attention. And for this, we need to acquaint ourselves with the various sources of the healthcare data. Dr. Personally had a workshop yesterday, and it is not an exhaustive one. There are still a lot of data available. We were just discussing over a cup of tea in the morning that the Greater Mumbai Municipal Corporation, they also have collected the various health-related information worldwide. And some of my past students, people have been called the disease and have been called of the hospitalized, and then try to see the clustering pattern where one can focus on this kind of health information. So these, those who are familiar with the data crunching here can play a big role, and also now we have Anusi from Dr. Lili's lab, and they are the one doing all the clinical trials and all that, and all process, and those who are coming from the quantitative background can again enhance your skills in terms of all the research design, test control studies, and randomized control trials, and those kind of areas, and how to get it analyzed is one thing. And ultimately nowadays, they can go for some kind of a voluntary. UN also has a voluntary. Go to the UN website. They have both paid volunteers and unpaid volunteers, where the students are given the opportunity to take part in the what we call the life-saving skills, and also for the field sector helping hand, that kind of thing. In the US and other countries, the students they just do not learn only what they are in the textbook and only from the class. They also learn by involving themselves in the community services, and probably they can be sent out to study some area and find out and make a social mapping of the health problems of the various areas in and around this institutes. IITs, we do send our students out for this kind of social mapping of the healthcare needs of the people. And then we also have some kind of community services for them. And you can always look at the website for the WHO, you can look at the website for the UNICEF, and there are a lot of internship programs for care and health available. And but it would be good for them also to be exposed to the health facilities and also the ground work that they probably this institute can also help them. They are pioneer in tobacco
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights. It is an immense pleasure for us that you joined us for our event.
The next distinguished to honor us with his valuable presence is our keynote speaker, Mr. Anuj Reddy. Mr. Anuj is the head commercial excellence at Dr. Reddy's India. His responsibility is to drive strategy, new business integration, sales force excellence, new portfolio introduction and training. Prior to taking on this role, he was the clutter head of the acute businesses responsible for pediatric, allergy and respiratory franchises for Dr. Reddy. He also oversaw the integration of the select businesses of UCB and Wockhardt into Dr. Reddy. Mr. Anuj has a rich experience of over 2.5 decades working with both Indian and multinational companies and has overseen functions like sales marketing, business development, commercial excellence, clinical development and regulatory. He has been the Global Marketing Director for Novo Nordisk AS and also has been awarded the Cluster Head of the Year for 3 years in a row between 2016 to 2018. Anuj is an alumnus of the Pune University, ITM Bangalore and London Business School. May I invite the keynote speaker to come forward and speak a few words.
Audible at the back? Yeah? Okay. Great. I'm a little claustrophobic here, so in case it's not too much of an issue, I'll probably walk down. I hope that's okay with everyone. I won't walk too much, but just to make sure that I'm not stuck to the dais. This is not something that we're used to in the industry, right? The dais is not something which is something that we're used to in the industry. So first of all, thank you so much for an excellent talk, Professor. It was wonderful hearing you out, and I would love to spend some time to get to know a lot of what you presented today. I think I was having a chat about the demographic dividends that he was talking about, as to how do we actually in India maximize the demographic dividends that we currently have or will have till 2045, 45, and what can we do in order to overcome the demographic dividend that we probably will not have at some point in time, right? There will be a point in time where we will not have that. So what can we do? but would love to hear your thoughts on that when we're done with this. Thank you so much for the faculty of SIMIHCO for inviting me here, and also to all of the students. I think wonderful interacting with each one of you. I've met a couple of you last evening, and look forward to interacting with you post this as well later on. So let me just start with what I want to be talking about. Obviously, the first thing that I heard when I was speaking to Professor Poonam, over the last few weeks was, your focus is the future of healthcare, right? And clearly, I think there is a lot that's changing within the healthcare industry. And when I'm thinking about all of these changes that are happening, I'm actually reminded of this big catch, right? This is a shipping vehicle, not a shipping vehicle, a fishing vehicle, or a fishing, let's say, ship. It's 8:45 in the morning, right? It's 26th of December, 2004, right? This particular boat has the biggest catch it's ever had, right? It's a catch of a lifetime. And I think this is, okay, perfect. So this is 8:45, and what it doesn't realize, I don't know if you guys are aware, that typically when something's happening in the ocean, the fish start all schooling together, right? They get together, and and this is what they actually ended up catching. So about 2,000 nautical miles away, something was happening, right? About 2,000 nautical miles away, there was the Eurasian plate and the Indo-Australasian plate that were kind of colliding against each other. These two plates, of course, they couldn't take the stress, and one of them just snapped. And what we had was probably the largest tsunami that there was, right? This was 26th of December 2004. A lot of you would have heard about it. These guys had absolutely no clue. They had the biggest catch of their lives, and they thought that this catch would continue. You know how the story went after that. I'm sorry, this is kind of stuck. So, okay, perfect. So you know how it ended after that, right? So what you need to know when you're making merry is hope there's not a tsunami that's coming, right? And I think as students of healthcare, each one of us need to be watchful of what's out there. Are there tsunamis that are coming? Are things that are happening in the external environment going to change the way we know the world or behave? Right? And these are a couple of things that all of you potentially are aware, or if you're not, you need to be aware. At least in the healthcare industry, these are the major changes that are happening. You've got the acceleration of the e-com space. I mean, all of you currently, if you're sick, I'm sure you've ordered something on PharmEasy, you've ordered something on 1mg. Clearly, e-commerce or Amazon is getting in. I hear in the US it's already there. In India, it's likely to come in soon. But clearly, e-com is a space that's opening up. It's opened up in other areas. It will open up in the pharmaceutical industry as well, and it's already started. E-consultation. All of you during the COVID period, all of you, if you ever got sick, there was no way of reaching out to a doctor physically. You probably got onto an app and met the doctor, right? So digital consultation is something that's the order of the day. I don't believe that's changed completely. Even today, if there is a preference, people do want to go to a doctor physically, right? But there are certain therapies where you don't want to go to the doctor, right? Especially if you've got too many infections happening, I want to keep away. Dermatology, I can take a picture and send it. You're pretty comfortable. You can do that. Sexually acquired diseases, you don't want to go to a doctor. Similarly, if you've got mental health issues, you might think a couple of times before going there. So yes, there is a segment that is gravitating more towards e-consultations, and there may be others that are not. But clearly, e-consultations is becoming more and more prevalent today than it ever was. Health tech space, all of you are aware of fintech, edtech, health tech as well, right? I mean, that's opened up as well. We've got 4, what do you call them, unicorns from the Indian healthcare space, 4 of them, right? So that's not small. Of the 100, we've got 4, which is still not too bad. Considering we don't spend as much on healthcare in India as the rest of the world spends, it's, I think, quite remarkable that we've got 4 unicorns already. Digital therapeutics, that's also something that is on the rise. I think people were talking about medicine and medicine alone in the past. Now you're actually talking about digital therapeutics, and what I mean by that is, I don't know if you heard digital therapeutics like Calm, for example, where for mental health you listen to some kind of music, certain frequency music, you can actually bring down the level of stress that you've got. You've got products which are for migraine, which are not tablets, which are not injections, but which are devices that you could potentially use in order to reduce the level of migraine that you've got. You've got products in epilepsy that potentially can tell you when you're likely to have an episode, right? So all of these things are happening today, and this is not something that is, out there. These are currently being, prescribed, being used in India and abroad, right? The government, of course, is going to be the largest change bringer, if you ask me, especially from an India point of view. And you've seen what's happened to the financial sector. All of us are aware of what's happened to the financial sector. It's really opened up. I was reading up yesterday, close to about 99% of all Indians have access to a bank account now. I mean, that's unthinkable. Where the poverty rate used to be as low as it used to be, 90 plus people who are directly into the banking sector, and most of them possess a telephone, which means that they can transact. All of that has happened. That's because the government played a role. And therefore, I think it becomes important as to what's the government going to be doing, especially in the healthcare space. And we'll talk a little bit about how that could potentially become a game changer, not just for the industry and everyone in general, right? And of course, OTC has been around for a while, but clearly I think a move towards consumerization is something that we're seeing a lot more of. So these are the big trends that we see, at least in the healthcare space, that all of you clearly need to be aware of. Okay, is this time? Okay. So what are the implications? The implications clearly are that they're going to be huge pressure on margins, and margins, we bother a lot about margins in the industry, but clearly all of you who business people, I'm sure, would also bother about that. So there is a lot of pressure on margins. There are new and innovative business models that are developing, and unless you keep pace with that development, you'll be left behind. And therefore, it becomes very imperative that we start looking at what are the major innovative digital businesses that are opening up. And of course, business models are becoming a lot more consumer-centric or customer-centric, right? So those are the major changes that are happening. There was a time around the 1970s. If you look back on history of the pharmaceutical industry, you'll see there's certain periods in time that have been major they've made huge changes. So 1970, around the 70s is when we actually signed our first, we started recognizing process patents, right, as a country. And that's what made India the pharmacy of the world, because then we started actually developing products that were available across the globe. Chemistry became the most important thing. We started putting together APIs that were probably 1/50th of the price of what was selling in the US, and made products extremely affordable for our consumers across India. So the focus there was about making sure that you can provide the most innovative products that are available globally at affordable prices in India. So that was the era of the 1970s. It continues to the 90s, late 90s, and into the 2000s, when we actually became signatories to the WTO. That's when we started recognizing the patents, which is product patents, right? Not the process, but the product patents. Once we did that, clearly the access to innovative medicine from across the globe became lesser and lesser. So then we started looking at research within India.
as to what is it that we can do. We started looking at branding of our existing products as to how can we make it bigger. And now we've come to a point where we need to look for new models. Right? And here I think the patient-centric models become very, very critical. It's not about branding, it's not about production, it is not about volumes, but it's about what does the patient really need. Right? So those are the models that we start looking at. So I think it's important when you're looking at patient-centric models to figure as to what is it that the patient is thinking. Right? What does the patient in India or in most parts of the world think? I'm not talking about India in general. Honestly, this is true for most. What does he think? And this is true for the US, Europe, every place. Healthcare is inaccessible. Right? This is the first thing that he thinks of. Not everyone. To a lot of us, healthcare is not inaccessible. But to a majority, it is. Right? It is still inaccessible. And believe me, it's more inaccessible in Europe than you think. Because there, if you want access to a specialist, you have to go through the GP, he's the gatekeeper, and he probably will not take you to the specialist unless and until he absolutely thinks it's necessary. And by that time, the disease may have progressed to a great degree. Right? So I'm not suggesting this is an India-only problem, this is a problem across the globe. Healthcare is inaccessible, healthcare is expensive, healthcare is opaque, right? It is not, it treats the patient, not the person. And all of you know about that, right? I don't want to be reminded that I'm a patient. I want to be reminded that I'm a person. I want to be treated as a person, not as a patient, right? And then, of course, managing and understanding disease is complicated. I don't know my disease. No one explains it to me. It is complicated. I'm overwhelmed. These are the different things that the patient actually thinks about. So of course, what becomes imperative is how do you create transparency within the healthcare. And here I believe the tsunami of change that I was talking to you about will kick in. Right? All of you have a UPI ID? Yes. All of you. Perfect. All of you have got a Paytm or a, what's the other ones? GPA and all of our, what do you say? If you've got a bank account, you obviously have a UPI. It goes without saying. Now, how has that become possible? Sorry? Accessibility is high. No, I think absolutely, accessibility has become higher. The reason it is the case is because there is something known as I don't know if you're aware, there is an infrastructure that's being created by the government, which is called the UPI, which is the unique. Sorry? Exactly, unique payment interface, right? So that's what the UPI is, right? BEAM or whatever we call it. All of the people who are built on top of it. This is a plumbing, right? You know what plumbing is? The infrastructure has been built by the government, and then you've got the private players that have come and placed all of their apps on top of it. But without the plumbing, without the infrastructure, it's impossible for anyone to build on top. So what does the infrastructure allow for you to do is interoperability and all of the other things. So this is exactly what is being envisaged for the healthcare industry, and this is not envisaged, this is something that has already been implemented in all of the union territories, right? And of course, India is a very large nation, you'll have to look at one state at a time. So it's going to be a while, and potentially after 24, because we've got other things that are happening within the environment, which may be more important. So right now I don't see it happening, but clearly this is enough proof of concept that exists. So what we are seeing is there'll be 3 areas of plumbing that are currently, or infrastructure that is currently being put in place. The number one is electronic registries. So what are electronic registries? So everyone has a health ID card. UHI. Everyone has a UHI. Any one of you has a UHI? Anyone? You actually can have one. So look it up. I don't have one myself because no one's pushed me to it. But everyone can actually have a UHI already. But once you start seeing the benefits of it, I'm sure you'll start getting it. Right? But just as you got an Aadhaar card, you will have a UHI card as well. Right? You will have a UHI card. The UHI card, which means that every doctor, every pharmacist, every path lab, every physiotherapist, every patient, everyone would have a UHI card. Right? So essentially what happens is you create a registry. Registry of doctors, registry of pharmacies, registry of, and obviously, first there will be a use of carrot and then potentially a stick in order to get everyone into it, right? It's not without, obviously, the Notebandi had a lot to do with the 90% or plus. So, creating those situations, that's something that I'm quite certain can happen. But nevertheless, electronic registries being one part of it. The second is personal health records. So essentially, all of your health records, today you go to a doctor, he gives you a prescription, the prescription is lost because you placed it somewhere and no one knows what happened to you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there is no trend, right? So personal health records are very, very important. They're also very personal, right? So how do you manage both? How do you make them accessible, but at the same time make sure that there's privacy is something that is being looked at. So that's the second part of the infrastructure that's being created. And the third, which means that you have e-prescriptions, you have diagnostic reports, all of that in the second place. The third is of course the transaction. Wherever you've got something happening, you need to have transactions, right? So what are transactions? What are transactions? Money transactions. Yeah, you go to a doctor, what do you pay? You pay money, right? You go to a path lab, you pay them money. If you have an insurance, if you have an insurance, you go to a hospital, what do? You fill a claim form, right? You fill a claim form, he goes to the insurance agent, they check out, is your disease covered, not covered? Sometimes it can take a day, sometimes 2 days, you're stuck with it, all of those issues, right? So claim processing is also something which becomes part of the third deck, which means the minute you produce your card, they already know, are you covered as part of Ayushman Bharat, and therefore should you get a free service? Are you uncovered, so should you pay for it? So if you need to pay for it, what should it be? Should your UPI be used? Can you use a credit card? All of that information becomes the third part of the plumbing. So you've got these three plumbings. On top of that, you've got all of the private players who actually can create apps potentially, could create information, so hospitals could have it. So that's essentially what's being looked at. Now how is that going to change? So just to give you a flavor, if you're a patient, you walk into a hospital, you go out there, there is a code, you go pick up your phone, you scan the code. Once you scan the code, the app asks you, do you want to share information, right? Automatically, the minute you scan it, all of your information, that's your name, address, age, all of that is directly, it goes to the hospital. What it asks you is, we want this information from you. You give a consent, saying, yes, I'm willing to share that information for this period of time. That information becomes available. So when you go meeting the doctor, he actually has all of your history, right? Now, potentially, there could be a business on top of it which says the minute all of this information goes to the doctor should be able to see it in a tabular format, in a graphical format, do predictive analytics, saying what could this patient be suffering from, etc. So that could be one potential mode that you could utilize this in, you could potentially have a business model that way. But so the information is passed on. Once the information is passed on, the doctor, of course, treats the patient, gives a prescription or orders, a path lab. He asks you to go to the path lab. All of that comes into your digital record for everyone, for you to have and use in the future. And of course, there is an e-prescription at the end of it, and potentially you can buy online as well. So all of that interaction can actually happen online or physically irrespective, right? So this is something that has been tested pride in all the UTIs, and let me know if this is becoming boring. I can make it more interesting. Okay. Yeah, I see some yawns. No? Okay, good. So yeah, I'll go a little quicker. I realize that I'm probably stretching this a little. But our current models, even if you've got our current model, you go to an Apollo hospital, they have an EMR, an electronic medical record, which means that you go in there, if you go in there the second time, your first information is already there, right? If you go to the same doctor, he can actually look at you, he say, oh, last time you visited, then he changes the prescription, etc. All that information exists. But if you were to then move to Medanta, let's say, or to a Wockhardt hospital, all of that information is lost. So what it will allow you is complete interoperability. So irrespective of where you go, whom you meet, that information which is yours, you can share, and with your consent, of course. Right? I'm not going to spend too long on it. It can change life immensely, both for the pharma industry. It can change it immensely when it comes to the payers. Payers, for example, I mean, insurance agents today, I don't know, they don't make too much money. They don't make money actually. Healthcare insurance is not very profitable in India. The reason it's not profitable is because, I can say, a lot of malpractice, right? A lot of malpractice, and this can pretty much take away malpractice, which means that you could actually have an insurance industry that blooms. At the same time, patient also gets what he needs to get. Right? Similarly, the provider, a lot of information to the provider. Provider is a doctor, and clearly he has information about what works with the patient, what doesn't work with the patient, what's the history of the patient. He can do research on what different types of medicines work on this cohort of patients versus the other cohort, and therefore tailor-make products for the patients in the future. So all of these are things that could potentially happen. Channel as well, huge gains from channel as well. So we talked about the infrastructure as to how the infrastructure is going to make it easier for people to bring about change and become patient-centric. Let me just give you some thought starters, and I know you guys all are going to go out, potentially into different parts of the world, in India, at some point in time, have potentially your own companies at some point in time, as to what are some thought starters for you, right? Or work with other people, as to how can you use the existing infrastructure that is available, but at the same time, how can you be patient-centric, and what kind of models are likely to be in vogue? Where is there a need? And how can you address those needs, potentially, right? And I'm sure this is not exhaustive at all. These are some thought starters, and would love to hear from you what are the other things that one could be looking at, right? So one of the things that we spoke about right at the beginning is, what do patients think? One of the things that the patient says is healthcare is inaccessible, healthcare is expensive. These are two things we spoke about. Now, what is it that one can do here, right? In my opinion, all of us, or for most of us here in Mumbai, healthcare is not inaccessible. You want to go to a doctor, you go meet a doctor. It's not inaccessible, right? Because the number of doctors right across the road, how many would you find? Sorry? Yeah, 15, 20, 100. Within this Ghatkopar area, you might actually have close to 200, 300, 400 doctors, right? So it's not inaccessible. But if you were to go 500 kilometers from Mumbai, is it inaccessible? If you go to some villages, absolutely inaccessible. Villages, I'm saying towns maybe not, but villages absolutely inaccessible. So we have, this whole thing of, where you need doctors, you don't have one. Where you don't need doctors, you've got too many of them. And that's the imbalance that exists today. Is that right? And if you wanted to take care of that, imbalance, I think EdTech has done a brilliant job, right? You had teachers in one place, you had no teachers in the other. What did they do? They brought these teachers to these guys. digitally. Right? EdTech is a huge space today. Now, if you were to look at EdTech and say, okay, is there something that we can do in health tech? This is exactly what is something that's happening, right? We've got companies that are going out there, setting up shop in villages. Of course, it's difficult. You don't make money initially, but is there a need? Absolutely. And once there is a need, I'm quite certain someone will find a way of delivering, accessible care at an affordable price, at the same time make money out of it. Because at the end of the day, no matter what people tell you, unless and until there is a business mechanism in place, it doesn't work. Someone needs to make money for healthcare to be delivered. That's just the truth of the matter. And I know it sounds very, very ridiculous because all of us need to be in the space of delivering health. And it's a noble profession. All of that is fantastic, but at the end of the day, what makes life move is financials, right? So essentially, you've actually got systems in place today in a lot of places in UP, Maharashtra, in parts of in Haryana as well, where you've got these chaos, right? So wherein you've got paramedics that hold this together, you've got connectivity, which is fantastic. You've got tabletop diagnostic facilities that are available. You can actually hear auscultation, right? You've got the stethoscope, you hear auscultations with a stethoscope. So that can be actually transferred, to the doctor in order for him to hear as to what's wrong with the patient. You can actually take blood glucose measurements. You could take heart, all of the measurements remotely, send it down there, and potentially treat the patient in the remote area. Right? So that's a business model that exists. It's not still very profitable, and I'm quite certain it'll get there. Right? So that's something that all of you can think about, right? And this is still kind of starting off. So this is telling me I'm going too slow. It's time. Okay, good. So which means I need to catch up. So access to medicine. Okay, access to medicine again. A lot of times, a lot of us, access is about two areas, right? One is availability. The second is can I afford it? That's access, right? So a lot of times in India, when you're talking about the reason you buy branded products, I mean, you know all the brands, right? I'm sure if you're using medicine, you talk about a paracetamol. You don't call it paracetamol. You probably call it a Dolo or a Calpol or something else is called a Brufen and what have you. And the reason you take a brand is because in India, unfortunately, the brand is the mark of quality. Right? Otherwise, I can just take any random product if I trusted quality completely. Right? So one of the things that people are talking about now are company branded generics. Right? So where the company then becomes the brand instead of the brand, and when you do that, potentially a product can become a lot more accessible, affordable, etc. Right? We are seeing parts of this come through, not in India, but I mean in Brazil, for example, you've got company branded generics that are very prevalent. Similarly, South Korea, you've got similar things. In India, we're not there yet, but I'm quite certain we'll get there. So this is one area that is potentially available, and people will start looking at these kind of areas. E-pharmacies, already very large, close to about 10% of all sales of pharmaceuticals now is happening on e-pharmacy, right? And when you look at monthly growth rates, and typically when we talk about it in the industry, we talk about annual growth rates, CAGR, cumulative annual growth rates. This industry talks about in monthly growth rates. So that's the level of growth that they see, right? Monthly growth rates, literally. So how much was January ahead of December? How much was December ahead of November? So growing really, really fast. Hyperlocal pharmacies, again, I think when you're talking about e-pharmacies have started working when it comes to chronic care, but not really from acute care perspective. And the reason they don't work in acute care is because the disease is acute. I want my medicine now because I'm facing my issue right now. I can't wait for a day, right? And when that happens, what do? You go to the chemist outside, right? And therefore, a chemist wants to be both. He wants to be both physically and digitally present, right? Unfortunately, if you're a mom and pop store, it becomes impossible for you to create that technology, right? So hyperlocal pharmacies, people who bring different pharmacies, just like a Swiggy, right? Swiggy or pharmacy is something that is a potential here. There's a potential here, Swiggy or pharmacy, right? Like, who's your pharmacy? Your pharmacy outside, Gandhi pharmacy, bahar baitha hai. I want medicine from there. You can actually get it from there. So that's a potential business model that exists. Omni-channel, people who are both physically and digitally present, and some of the companies are doing this. You've got, MedPlus in parts of the south, which is doing a lot of this. Apollo is doing this. I believe National at some point will start doing this. So that's something that exists and potentially could be looked at. The second thing that I think a lot of people, patients are talking about is solve it for me, right? Personalize my medicine. I'm not the same, I'm a different human. I'm sure I require something else than some other human being. So personalize it for me. Don't make this generic for everyone, right? And you're seeing a lot of personalized medicine come through, and I know this was fiction. It no longer is. It no longer is, especially in the space of oncology. This is reality. CAR T cell, which is essentially it's immunotherapy. Immunotherapy is clearly going this direction. Not going this direction. You are being treated. Patients are being treated here. So what they do is they extract T cells from that particular individual. Add a chimeric antigen on top of it and grow them, in the lab, and then inject it back into the patient. And the patient then, and a lot of times, I don't want to use the word cure, but you are seeing remissions that are almost like cure in oncology when it comes to medicine, right? And this is personalized medicine. Microbiome, all of us are aware of microbiome. If you're not, you've heard of, this is my gut feel. You've heard this word, gut feel. Where does that word come from, gut feel? It comes from your gut. Yeah. So they actually say that you've got a second brain in your gut, and that's why they say gut feel, right? There are more microbes in your body than cells in your body, and this microbes in your body is called the microbiome. The microbiome has been implicated in most diseases. So if there is an imbalance, you could potentially have anything from mental disorder to let's say, Parkinson's, to diabetes, to what have you. And there's enough evidence today, right, to prove that your gut may be responsible, your microbes in your gut may be responsible for 80% of the diseases that exist. Right? Enough evidence. So there is now work that's happening on, modulation of the gut microbiome. So how can I modulate it in such a way that your microbiome becomes as good as it can, so that you stop suffering from diseases. It's not a cure yet, but prevention, microbiome is being used for big time. So it can actually predict what are the kind of diseases that you potentially can get in the future, and then can I modulate your gut microbiome to prevent you from getting those diseases, right? So that's personalization that's happening today, right? Look, some of these guys are Biome. These are companies that currently talk about doing such things. Genome sequencing is another area. Gene therapy, cell and gene therapy is again very, very personalized. So these are certain models that one should definitely be thinking about. We talked about being treated as a person, not as a patient. Right? And when you want to be treated as a person, what are the most important things? You want to take care of yourself. Right? I don't want 10 people telling me what I should be doing. Right? I want to take care of myself. I want to detect, what's wrong with me. I want to be monitoring the disease that I currently have. I want to be not treating it, but at least having a part in treating it along with the doctor. And I want to be correcting behavior. So today wearables are able to do a lot of this. Anyone wears an Apple Watch? Okay. So an Apple Watch 4 and upwards, series 4 and upwards actually has, obviously it always had your heartbeat, it would monitor your heartbeat, it always did, right? But 4 and above can also do an EEG now. An EEG, right? So essentially, EEG is, help me here. EEG. ECG as well, but it can do an EEG as well, right? So electrocardiogram, electroencephalogram, right? So both the brain and the heart, it can actually monitor, right? Now, how accurate, how inaccurate, those are things that we can come to later. But honestly, if you got there, imagine what you can do. You can actually potentially detect stroke. You can potentially, I'm saying potentially here. I'm not saying you can predict, but you can potentially detect stroke. You can potentially detect epilepsy, epileptic attacks before they happen. All of this could potentially be something that you should be in a position to do. Digital therapy, and of course correct behavior. I mean, how many of you are using any app to keep fit? Healthify you, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So what does it do? It tracks your calories, tracks your steps, exercises, number of. Absolutely, absolutely. And what it's trying to do is not just that, it's trying to change your behavior, right? Because it will tell you in the morning how much did you walk yesterday, how much do you need to walk today. It knows, are you an early riser? So as soon as you pick up the phone, there's something out there, right? So all of these are behavior change modules. They're trying to make sure that you're able to change behavior. So this is an area that's likely to boom. Digital therapeutics, again, the ones that I spoke about are again areas that are going to change the way we work, be it in mental health, be it in things like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or with psoriasis, be it diabetes, be it cardiac care. All of these currently have digital therapeutic products that are available. These are products that a patient can use on himself and live a healthier lifestyle. Obviously, these are not drugs. The patient cannot self-prescribe, self-medicate. That's not the intent either. But can he live a healthier life? Absolutely. Can he eat the right kind of food? 100%. Can he exercise more? Can he, can he do all the right things? Absolutely. So that, for me, is as important as, the medication itself. And of course, the last one is, I'm shocked. I don't know what to do. What can I do to heal? These are the questions, right? Packaging. The basic things companies can do here. Packaging. Now look at how many of you have opened a packet and then don't know a drug strip, and don't know what actually it contains. Because आपने जब यूं किया तो उसका नाम ही निकल गया. And then what do? You throw it away. Because you don't know what's in it. You buy a fresh one. Right? Isn't that irritating? Now basic things like just making sure your brand name is right on top, so that even when you break the pill, when you take out the pill, you still can see as to what the product is, what's the dosage, do I need to take it in the morning, evening, and when is the expiry. That should be availability here. That should be very simple. Very simple, no rocket science here. But can we just think at the patient, think about the patient rather than saying, okay, how do I manufacture? Right? So patient assistance programs, these are things that, companies are doing a lot more of to become patient-centric. I'm just talking about what the companies are doing currently, right? Adherence program, because most people who are on chronic medication, their adherence is close to about 50 to 60%. They don't, the other 40-50% actually don't adhere to medication, which means that they don't get the outcome that they need to be getting. And of course, I think survivor communities, patient communities, especially if you're suffering from something like, diseases in the oncology space, clearly, I think people want to talk to each other. They want people to hear, they want to hear each other. I mean, of course, they want to meet the doctor. It's not as if they don't. But I think they learn a lot more from survivors than they do from doctors. So getting them to interact with each other, getting them to, put their arms around each other, that becomes a lot more important. That's true for a lot of diseases. Psoriasis, for example, very, very important, right? Because they don't want to talk about anything, not even to their better halves, right? They want to be talking to people who suffer from these diseases. So creating these communities, medically verified information, major issue. You won't believe that before you walk into a doctor's chamber, if you had 10 questions, after walking out of the doctor's chamber, you have 15. Not because he's not answered your questions, he's answered a lot of them, but you still have many more. So what do? You go online and search. And what do you find? You're suffering from cancer. Everything out there, and you get deeper, cancer. It's scary. So how do you make sure that the patient's actually getting the information that he needs to be getting? So, I mean, I know this industry that's done it. I mean, we've got Lupin that has chatbots that are for diabetes. You actually talk to people, the information is provided to you, right? So, all I wanted to talk to you about was exactly this, that there are many opportunities that exist today, right? The government is actually taking the lead in making sure that they're able to create infrastructure that our country can feel very, very proud of. And honestly, when you guys get out into the world, I can guarantee you, you are getting out into a world which is very different from when we were growing up. Being aware that this world has changed is super critical to you. Knowing what are the agents of change is super critical to you. And knowing as to what you can do about this is also useful. So I'm hoping that we started off with the big catch, which was not a big catch. It was actually a tsunami. Hopefully you'll be able to use the wave of the tsunami and make a big catch. So all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your time and valuable insights with us. Any questions?
Sorry.
I would ask you one thing about the model when you were mentioning that for personal patient data, a company is connecting with the patient, keeping the data. Like for example, when you mentioned Apollo 40s, any company, any specific hospital connecting with the company, right? And you mentioned that the patient doesn't like to now go to that particular hospital, but he has registered with that particular hospital. Now he goes to some different hospital organization, and that particular hospital is not registered with the company who is maintaining the data, right? Now the question comes, like multiple hospitals would be having multiple companies to work for their data. What exactly can be done? Because until this government doesn't interfere, like create a common platform, it cannot be accomplished.
So in fact, that's what I spoke about. There is a common, plumbing that is being done. So you will have, we talked about 3 blocks, right? One was the registries, the second was the data, and the third was the payment system. The second one is essentially where all of the data will sit. And this data is obviously held by the government of India. I mean, obviously, I'm just making this up. Obviously, it will be held on the cloud and they will pay to someone and all of that, but it's their responsibility to hold it, right? And that data can only be shared when the patients want it to be shared. So before you get into any doctor's chamber, it will ask you for consent. So once you give the consent, that information becomes available, but only for the period of time. After the ailment is done or the treatment is done, that information or the previous information may not be available to the doctor anymore. It goes away and sits in the database.
So one last thing, any
You had one more question. You had one more question, which is interoperability. It will become possible, interoperability. And yes, can everyone be forced into it? I don't believe so. So there will be some hospitals that will not want to buy into it. There will be some doctors who may not want to buy into it. But today, every place I see a UPI here. Why do I see that? Because you stop going to the place that doesn't allow you that.
But when multiple companies would be competing each other, not worrying about the common platform, that will be an issue. For example, recently happened with Grover, Grover sir, that now his stakes are going down with the idea what he actually introduced, and Google Pay is way ahead of what Grover is not making to able to do it. Don't you think this competition can break this common platform?
So all of them work on the same platform. I don't know what Grover is, but definitely, you talked about Google Pay. It's on the same platform. So is Paytm. So is Bob. All your banks. Everything is on the same platform. So if you believe there's another platform that runs in India, there isn't. This is the platform.
But you said the main structure is being platformed by government, like
Yes.
governed by specifically this main pillar is by government, right?
Yes.
Seen by government. But they are given some, tenders to these private.
No tenders. You can exploit it the way you want. It's open for people to use. Obviously, within the frameworks, they can't, start doing stuff that's illegal. But they don't pay anything. I mean, there may be a fee to it or what have you. But essentially, it's an open API. It's an open API. You can use it as you need it. So this is infrastructure. It's like roads that you create. Now, maybe I pay toll on a road for 10 years. Post that, I stop paying toll. So I can use it. Now, I can have a Mercedes that can drive on it. I can also have a Maruti that drives on it. So the different apps that you're talking about are the Marutis and the Mercedes that are driving on the roads. Right?
One last thing, what could be your suggestion for all the youngsters? Whatever market will be going on, what common suggestion you would recommend us to be, on track with health, because this is the one booming industry.
Yeah, and it's going to be for a while. Unfortunately, human suffering is not something that all of us should feel proud about. But I think we should look at ourselves as leaders, and I think this is unfortunate that all of us go through the whole process of aging and aging. So this is going to be an industry that will always be around, right? So my suggestion to each one of you is think of impact. I think that's the most important thing. All of the rest falls in place. Be it, career, money, everything else falls in place, provided your focus is on how do I create impact. And where do you create impact? On your end consumer. If you're able to create impact on your end consumer, everything will tie back. Thank you.
So I have read about what are the scopes in consultancy agency specific to healthcare in India.
Consulting agencies. What kind of consulting agencies?
Specific to healthcare analysis.
Analysis. Okay. So I need to know more of what you're talking about, because when we talk about consultants, we talk about the top four, the big fours, and then you've got the the McKinseys and the the KPMG, your BCGs and what have they and the rest of it. Are you talking about those people, or are you talking about what kind of consulting agencies?
Specific to healthcare data, patient data.
Healthcare data. I'm sorry, I won't be the most the right person to answer your question here. I don't want to misguide you. So, but I can put you through to someone who can help.
As you mentioned that we need to have more patient-centric approaches towards care delivery. So when we go about going for patient-centric approaches, there can be a lot of logistics and supply chain issues can be there, which can be a major cost centers for the companies. So what interventions can we do as managers so that we can reduce that cost center and there also provide centric approaches or personalized services to the patients?
So when you're talking about logistics, how do you get the medicine to their place, etc.? Is that what you're talking about?
Or maybe personalized creating of medicines for specific.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, this looks very fancy, you're right, but at the end of the day, who's going to pay for it? Personalization clearly means that it's going to be expensive because it's made for me. Absolutely agree with you. To start off with, that's exactly how it's going to be. Today, and that's why the areas that it's getting into are areas that are typically the treatments are very expensive. So oncology, rheumatology, those are the areas that they've got into personalization. But is it going to be remain there? No. We will start looking at mass customization, especially like you do in the microbiome space. Microbiome space is in preventive medicine. It's not in curative medicine. And there, if you're stuck with personalization at a one-on-one level, it becomes difficult. So what you start doing is creating cohorts, saying, okay, this cohort, these kind of things work best. So you create large cohorts, similar cohorts. So that's what is likely to happen. And then potentially you will then have technologies that will be in a position to create mass customization even at n equal to 1 level. We're far from there, but I think the next wave is creating these cohorts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Chandan ma'am to convey director's message.
Before I start, Ayush, you were asking about what message you would like to give. If you start reading 1 month bullet point from his PPT, you will get into an ocean of opportunities which is available. Fantastic presentation, Ayush. It was really nice. So our director, Dr. Raman Ramachandran, could not make it due to some unavoidable circumstances, but it was really nice of him that he sent a message for organizers, for all of us. So I got the opportunity to read that. He says, conventional wisdom suggested that developed countries have better healthcare system, but recent indicators from Western Europe indicate that this is certainly not true, with the waiting period for even emergency services running to the several hours and days. Healthcare in India is a paradoxical situation. World-class healthcare system is available in India, but it is for a limited few. We are pharmaceutical factories for the world. Our government aspires to provide universal healthcare and has launched programs like Ayushman Bharat scheme. Yet a large proportion of our population has no access or a limited access to the quality healthcare. The proportion of Indians covered by the healthcare insurance in a single digit. As we live longer and the proportion of elderly increases, the demands of healthcare will compound. India has always seen a fertile, ground for innovations in the healthcare, ranging from Arvind Eye hospitals, which took inspirations from McDonald's to provide eye care to the large masses at low cost to portable ECG machines. Confluence of technology, innovations, entrepreneurship, and policy interventions that individual scale can make the quality healthcare universal and affordable. The conference organized by Healthcare Management Program on the theme Future of Healthcare Strategies and Policies for Care Delivery and Well-being is timely. I congratulate the organizers and wish all participants fruitful deliberations and recommendations that will make a difference for the country. Thank you, Raman sir. Thanks a lot.